Okay, good deal. Well, welcome. We're small but mighty today. We had quite a crowd registered, but I think we had a lot of cancellations, and maybe we'll get some people kind of trickling in. So it all works. So again, my name is Jackie Caratini. I'm the Family Living Agent with the UW Extension Offices, and this is our second edition. Hopefully, I don't know, I think I recognize some of you from last time. Did the homework for bonus points? Anybody do that to track your spending? Okay, so you would have seen yesterday I sent out an email. I don't need to see what you did. All you need to do is just answer those 3 responses in the Qualtrics, or no, I did SurveyMonkey, and then just send it back, and then you'll get your bonus points. So not too difficult. We're trying to make it easy so that you can get those additional points. So make sure you do that, and then you'll get those additional points, and we'll kind of go on from there. So with that, today we're going to talk about savings and kind of how to make your money work for you. The reason we're doing this one, so there are going to be 4 sessions. The first one was on budgeting and spending plan. The second one is on savings. And the last 2 were actually, we'll talk about at the end today, but we'll send out a survey and we'll let you pick the topics for the last 2. But the reason that this one actually is on savings today, and I might have mentioned this last time, is that when we did the survey this summer, and we surveyed county employees, it was really interesting that over almost a majority, over 95% of employees said that they were saving for retirement. And why do we think that is? Because it's automatic. It comes right out of your paycheck. It's something that the county does for you. It's set up for you. When we asked about emergency savings, anybody want to take a stab what that was? It was less than 20%. And so really interesting how we go from almost 100% of people saying, yes, I'm saving for retirement, but for emergencies, yeah, a very, very low amount were saying that they're saving for emergencies on a monthly basis. So have this huge kind of discrepancy and this population where, yeah, everybody needs to be saving and setting something aside for emergencies. Because guess what? Life happens, folks, right? All the time. And it doesn't make a difference where you are in your lifespan. Something happens. So if you have little kids and you're at that stage in your life and you have kid-related stuff, or you own your own home and your hot water heater breaks, or your furnace, or your septic, and you're talking about something that, yep, or a car related, and new tires right now. Tires can cost you upwards of $1,000 just for something as simple as that. So stuff happens all the time. Or if you get on the other end of your lifespan and we're talking about medical issues, or just lots and lots of stuff. So things that used to be simple things are now can snowball. A few years ago we had a survey done nationally, and they looked at people who actually had to file bankruptcy or foreclosure, and they looked at what was the reason that started the whole thing, and they thought that it was going to be job loss, and it actually wasn't. What do you think it was? No, it actually wasn't medical. It actually was some small thing happened. It was something small, like the things that we just said, and they weren't prepared for it, and it threw off their monthly budget, and they just couldn't catch up. And then it just snowballed into something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they either took out credit cards, and they got behind, and they just couldn't catch up. So, research tells us that the more that we can anticipate small things, it won't, snowball into something larger. So we have this huge percentage, and actually in the last, I don't know if any of you have seen, but there's a report called the ALICE report. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Constrained, or Income Constrained and Employed. And this looks at everyone who is employed, and it goes across the country, but there's one specific for Wisconsin, and it's put out by United Way. And it goes county by county, so you can break it down county by county. But in the entire state of Wisconsin, we know that in the last 6 years, that a number of people who are working, because again, this was everybody who was employed, that was not able to meet monthly needs and basic needs and have any kind of savings went up significantly, like 40% across the state of Wisconsin. And so these are all people that are employed, but still not be able to meet those basic needs. So that's when we start thinking about, okay, what's happening here and what can we do to kind of work on that? So that's when the importance of having anything. And so when we talk, and I'll get there in a little bit, when we talk about emergency savings, I always talk to people and I'm like, when I used to ask, and this is, I can go back, I've been doing this a long time. So 20 years ago, if you went to like a financial planner, they'd say, oh, do you have, 2 years worth of your salary built up, and people would be like, eyes would glaze over and they'd be like, no way, you don't have that. You have that in retirement, but you don't have that sitting in the savings account, unless you're saving for something. But now it's like, no, what do you have? And I usually tell people, if you have nothing, I want you to start with something small. I want you to start with $5 a month. I want you to start with whatever you can, because you're starting a habit and you're building this habit and you're building it in. And if you started with something too big, you're not going to be able to get there. So it's always start with whatever you can afford and something very small. And that way you're building it in and you can get there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But okay, so kind of two different categories when it comes to savings. So there's short-term savings and there's long-term savings. So short-term savings is those kind of things that you need to accomplish in less than 5 years. So that's stuff that's going to come up and that's going to be kind of on the forefront, and you're going to need that immediate money. So things like maybe a car, vacation, some type of electronics, maybe you're moving, maybe you need new furniture, different things like that. So this is stuff that you might need to save for, because it might be a couple $1,000s, but it's something that you're going to need in the short term. Versus when we get to long-term savings, this is tend to be more big ticket items, but they're going to be more than 5 years out. So this is college, this is retirement, this is might be a medical procedure. Some people do save maybe for if you have a child that that maybe needs braces or things like that, different things, but campers, stuff just depends what you're doing and where you're at in life. Those have tendency to be more of your long-term savings. All of it goes back to what are your goals. And we talked about this when we talked about our budgeting. Really important to know what you're saving for and to have a goal. So always kind of have your goals and be able to identify what it is. And even when we're talking about that emergency savings, always have something set up to say, I'm going to put blank aside just even for emergency savings. But know what your short-term and I always tell people have short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Because most people, like I said with retirement, research tells us that it's over 95% of the population has long-term goals. Everybody can say, I want to retire, I want to send my kids to college, I want to own a home, I want to pay off my home. Everybody can tell us that. But if I say, what are you doing today to get to that? They go, oh, I don't know. Other than it comes out of my paycheck, direct withdrawal, they don't know. Like, they can't tell me how they're getting there. So that's where those short-term and those medium-term goals come in. So if you can do some of those short-term, medium-term stuff, that's going to help you get to that long-term stuff. So, and that's also going to kind of keep you motivated, because otherwise we lose sight of the long-term stuff and we'll never ever get there. So the more that we do those short-term goals and we have success with it, then we're like, hey, I got this, I can do this. And the same thing happens if you have goals in other parts of your life. I don't know if you've ever been on, I'm going to exercise more, or I'm going to, make a healthy lifestyle change. If we start off with something huge and we're going to do 10 things, what happens? We more than likely fail, right? But if we start off with something really small and we do that one thing and we focus on one thing, more than likely you're able to make that one thing a habit, and then you can move on to something else. So that's the same thing with those goals. So start off with one thing that's tangible, that you can do those short term, and then once you make that, then you move on to the next thing. So always have something in that short-term window that you can say yes and build that self-confidence up to get you to the next thing. The other thing is, even if you are working on that long-term stuff, have it visible so you can see it. What we know about adults is it's that, see it, think it, own it kind of mindset. So even if it is a long-term goal, put a picture on your refrigerator, keep something in your wallet, have something with you to keep you motivated so that you know that, yep, this is what I'm working towards. And it might be 20 years down the line, but know that, this is what I'm working towards and this is what's going to keep me going, so that you know that, yep, this is my goal. This is what I'm going for. Because we have to have something to keep us motivated. So that's really important. And the more that you can make it visual, the better it is. I don't know if I told you guys this story last month, but I was working with a family last year, and they were working on paying off debts. So Not quite the same, but it gets to my point. But they had made a lot of cuts, and they were doing a lot of savings in different places, and they were doing really, really well, but they were so down and out. And they were really having a hard time because they had cut back so much that they just couldn't, it was just really down and out, and everybody was just totally bummed out by it. And they came up with the idea of, have you ever seen like for, United Way or a fundraiser at church where they have like the big bulb, and as you raise money, the bulb, the line in the bulb goes up, the red bulb goes up. So they made one of these for their living room wall. So they had this big giant bulb on their living room wall, and then every time they made a payment and they paid off even just a $20 payment, they made a line so they could see that the debt was moving up, and that they were, and then they had little things on the side as they were paying off their goals. So they had short-term goals. So if they got, to this line, they had a picnic at the park. If they got to this one, they got to rent movies. So they had little goals. Their ultimate goal was, don't quote me, it was something like $30,000. I mean, it was this huge amount of debt that they had to pay off. It was going to take a long time for them to get to that large amount of debt. And that seemed so overwhelming. That was a 5-year goal. That was a long time down the road. But they needed little bitty things to keep them going. So that's the thing that we need to think about when we have goals. So whether it is savings or, you got to put in the short term and the medium term to get you there. Okay, so I think we covered this one last time, but when you're working with goals, you have to make them very specific. So you have to put a time on there, you have to put an amount, and it has to be very specific so that you can adjust it. So you can't just say, I want to save money, because you're not going to be able to adjust that. So it has to have the date, the amount, and then how much. Because then you can also go back and you can adjust it. And with any goal, and this is not just with financial stuff, this is with anything in your life, always ask yourself on that scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I? If I am not at least an 8, then go back and adjust something. So if you say, how confident am I that I can save, I'm going to put aside $500 a month, and you go, you know what? I don't think I can do that. I'm just not. I'm only, a 6. Then you can go back, okay, what is it? Is it, my goal is $500 a month, for the next 6 months. You know what, I don't think I can do $500 a month. I think I really can only do $300. Or maybe I can't do it for, the next 5 months. Maybe I need, 10 months. You can change it. Because we have all of these factors in here, we can change it up. So that's why all of these pieces are important, because it allows you to change it, and then confidence can go up. Whereas if I just said, I need to save money, how do I know if I'm actually getting there? Does that make sense? Okay. I talk fast. I apologize. I should stop. Good? Okay. So the other thing is to prioritize your goals, and to kind of know what's most important. And this is going to change throughout your life, okay? Because again, we're always going to have that long-term stuff. That retirement is always going to be sitting out there. But over the course of your life, other stuff is going to bubble up. So other things might come to the surface, and that's going to trump things, and it's going to shuffle stuff. So over the course of your financial life, your goals are going to change, and they're going to change order. And I mentioned braces. Braces is one of those things that sometimes trumps other things, because kids and braces pop up, and and now there are other options to pay for those. But that's one of those things that when it happens, and it needs to be paid for immediately. And so that trumps something else. So something else gets shoved away, and it gets pushed down the line, because kids need braces and they need them right now. Right? So that's what happens. So our priorities are going to change. Same thing with tires. You're going to need tires. Tires are going to come. They're going to be right now. And then, other things are going to happen. So it's one of those things that you're going to have to be able to know what your priorities are, know where they fall in the kind of with your goals, and how you can be able to shuffle them. But that's why it's important to know what they are, so you have that ability. And that's why it's also important to be able to have that little, whether you call it a slush fund or that emergency savings, so you have that flexibility to be able to do that. If you were living month to month and paycheck to paycheck, that's when it's really difficult. So I told you I've been doing this a little while. And back in, so the late, I don't know what we call it now, 2000s. So when we had the economy turn, 2008, 2009, and I was doing a lot of individual financial counseling. It was really interesting because if you ask me what the average income of the people that were coming in for financial counseling was, take a stab what their income was. 75 to 100,000. Okay, and it was a lot of folks. It wasn't here. Actually, it was up in Wausau, but it was folks that worked in the paper mill. Okay, it was people that worked in the mills. But what happened at that time? A lot of them were changing, and so they either lost their jobs, they lost time and a half, they lost overtime. All that stuff went away. They had overtime for 30 years, and all of a sudden it was gone. All that stuff that they had built up was gone. So you had these, positions, and so they had built their spending up to all these things. So they never had to have a budget because they had all this income and they counted on it because it was always there. And so, they had multiple vehicles and you had, campers and you had vacations and you had all this stuff and you didn't have to worry about it because they had income. And now all of a sudden, and they didn't lose jobs. They just lost overtime. They lost time and a half. They lost all this extra stuff. And when that extra stuff went away, all of a sudden we're tight. We're really, really tight. So that's one of those things that it's like, you need to kind of know where everything is at because that's not guaranteed. And I think that was an about face for a lot of people because they didn't have that cushion built in and they had their spending built up. So that was kind of a really turn for a lot of people in the entire country to say, you know what, you really need to have something kind of set aside. And all that extra that comes in, you're not guaranteed to have that. Okay. So, you tell me, why should we save? Seems obvious, but why should we save? Back up. What else? Yep. Nothing else? Yeah, so that's a really important one. So to be able to have that financial freedom to do what you want when you want, right? So that's really important to be able to have that independency and that security to know that you can be able to make your decisions of what you want and when you want to be able to do those things. The other thing is to really think about to be able to have cash reserves and to be able to have the ability to make purchases, do things when you need them and not have to be able to rely on someone else or to take out credit or things like that when you need to make a purchase. So that's the other piece of it too. And the other thing is to know that if you do want something in the future, you know that that's secure as well. So you have that security piece that there is there too. Where should we save? So this is kind of almost comes out like a trick question, right? So it's really interesting. So again, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is really a personal question, So you think, well, everybody uses a bank. No, they don't. And not everybody's comfortable with that, and it really doesn't make a difference. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk a lot about more commercial types of savings. But the idea is, I really don't care what you do. So yep, you're going to get interest if you put it into commercial savings. But if you want to put it in a coffee can under your bed, go for it. It really doesn't make a difference. The idea is that when it comes to savings, you have to have it somewhere where you can, one, get at it, and two, you can not get at it, okay? So that's the interesting thing about savings. It needs to be accessible to you when you need it, but it also needs to not be accessible to you so that you're not taking from it all the time, right? So if you're the type of person that I'm just going to spend, if it's there, it needs to be in a place where it's not always there. So that's why we actually have savings accounts, and stuff doesn't always just go into our checking, because if it was there all the time, we would just take it. And so I always tell people that if you're the type of person that if it's there, and even if it's at your bank and it's easily accessible, and you're like, well, and I've had lots of people, many people tell me, oh, Jackie, that savings account, that's silly. I just take it out or it automatically drafts into my checking, and that does not save. Well, then don't do that. then do this, give it to someone else. Do you have somebody that you can trust, and have them, and save and give it to them? Because then what happens? Then I have to come to you and I have to say, can I have $50, and this is what I need it for? And you have to explain it out loud. And it sounds silly when I say it out loud to you, what I'm asking for the money for. And part of that is, and it might be a spouse, and it might be a friend, and it might be a family member. And it has to be somebody you trust, but it really depends on what kind of spender you are. So you have to know that. But it really works. So it just really depends and that goes into that whole idea of, where your cash is and what you're doing with it. But just know that sometimes commercial pieces don't work for everybody, but you just need to know what works for you and what kind of spender. Commercial pieces don't what works for you and what kind of spender. Commercial pieces don't what works for you. Commercial pieces
in Wisconsin. What I like about some of these recipes, though, like the cheddar and broccoli and stuffed sweet potatoes, that could be just a meal for me, but my husband might think, that's not quite enough. That's an easy way to add lots of vegetables to your meal, and then I can throw a piece of baked chicken on the side for him if I need to. Or maybe your plan was to do pork chop, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Well, instead of the mashed potatoes, do this. So now instead of potatoes and green beans with your pork chop, you now have sweet potatoes, broccoli, green beans, and there's actually black beans in this recipe. So now you're having 4 vegetables with your meal instead of only the green beans and the potatoes. So it's not always about completely changing our meal, but just seeing what we can add to it. And so the last slide, eating for health, let's make it fun. So what you choose to eat does truly matter. Like we said, the Mediterranean diet actually affected those women on a DNA level. And what the World Health Organization said about by 2020, 2/3 of our diseases are going to be because of our lifestyle choices. What we eat truly affects how our health is. Have fun with new recipes or ingredients. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be work to try and add more plant-based foods to your diet. You could grab one of the recipes I have here, or Google and find your own recipe, make it. Maybe it sucks. Maybe you don't like it. That's okay. You learn maybe a new cooking principle that you can now change and put some different ingredients in that you like better, but you can build on that and you can have fun with it. Involve the whole family. If you're cooking for a spouse or if you're cooking for kids, sometimes just throwing something new on the table isn't always their favorite. So you can incorporate, or you can involve them. Ask the kids, would you rather have this or this? And sometimes just by being able to pick something, even if they're not sure if they'll like it or not, is enough to get them to want to try it and not complain about it as much. Or maybe they want to help you cook. Cooking is a skill that we got to learn, so maybe they want to help you cook it, and you want to bring them into the kitchen with you a little bit more. It's a balance, don't stress out. So we want to talk about incorporating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. We want to have that plant-based diet for our health. But then it's Susan's retirement and there's cake in the break room. It's okay. It's okay to have that occasional piece of cake. I know people have heard about the 80-20 or 90-10. What that boils down to is you just want the majority of the food you eat, the majority of the time, to be that healthier, more nutritious choice. And when in doubt, ask a dietitian. So if you're trying some new things at home and you really want to make some changes but you're struggling, you're not sure what to do, or you can't get the family involved or on board, or you just feel like you need help or somebody's opinion or a suggestion, reach out to a dietitian. That's what we're here for. At the hospital, we have the Diabetes and Nutrition Center where you could meet with them and set up goals and maybe meet with them 2 or 3 times over the course of a few months to kind of make some changes to your lifestyle and to your eating habits. Or maybe you just have a quick question and you just want somebody's opinion on it. I have my cards that I'll leave, and you can send me a quick email and I can just give you my opinion on some question you might have. But when in doubt, dietitians are here. So that is actually all I have for slides. Like I said, I did bring those recipes, and I also wanted to mention that I brought both of these cookbooks that I have those recipes from. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get any benefit from you liking them. I just think they're really great cookbooks, so I wanted to bring them for you to take a look at if you wanted to. Any questions?
Use your chance to ask a dietitian.
So like, you go to the store, you say try a new vegetable every week.
Mhm.
I want to try a vegetable, but I don't know how to cook it. I don't know how to, what to put them in. I mean,
Excellent idea, or excellent question, I mean. So there's always Google. And I would even just start there and say, you know, how do you cook Brussels sprouts? And maybe it says to roast them. Well, you know, I'm sure you can also boil something. You can also grill it. You can, I mean, we know how we cook our other foods. So maybe start with roasting. You don't like it? Try one of the other ways of cooking that you already know you like. Does that make sense?
yeah, I'm talking some of the extreme vegetables. I mean, I don't have a clue what to do with, say, I don't know, kohlrabi or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
What it, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to make Google my friend because
A lot of times, just kind of as a rule of thumb too, as a rule of thumb, if it's something like, if it kind of looks like a potato, you can kind of cook it like a potato. So like a kohlrabi or a rutabaga or something like that, they kind of, when you peel them, they kind of look like a potato would look. You can cook them kind of like a potato. You can try that. Or if it's really like stiff, dark green, often you're going to want to add some tangy and some sweet to it. And you can choose, that might be cranberries and some like lemon juice, a tangy and a sweet. I mean, you can choose what tangy and sweet you want, but those are just kind of some general principles for some of those foods. Trying to think of something else. Yeah, throw another vegetable at me because now I'm drawing a blank.
I know, I was like, I mean, I've tried eggplant by grilling it. Kids didn't like it, so then I just gave up. I never thought about roasting it or,
Yep.
you know, what else.
Yep.
I mean, you don't want to deep fry it, but.
So you could try roasting it, and some of those vegetables too, if you've grilled it, if you've roasted it, and like just the family's not happy with it, those are usually the vegetables that I say chop it up small and throw it in a casserole. You're still getting the nutrition. You don't have to taste every bite of it, but you're still getting that nutrition from it.
Spaghetti squash is really good.
Yep. And you can use it just like a noodle, or you can use it as a side dish, as your vegetable. Absolutely. Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
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 Thank you.